wanna be happy like you. I wanna be happy like you. You make it look easy, right? Can you please spare some light?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 809 with a review of Lurker. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. This week, we already had a review of Caught Stealing, and now we are talking about a little film called Lurker. Stephen, wait, we already talked about how we're doing, getting ready for TIFF. Anything you want to say before we get started with this episode?
No, let's dive in so we can get ready for TIFF more.
All right. We are going to change the music that's playing here in our retail establishment, and we're going to play the trailer for Lurker, and then we're going to come back and hopefully give you guys a review.
So where did he find you at? A meet and greet or something?
No. He came into the store I work at. You make music?
Yeah, sometimes, bro. You should come to the show tonight.
Swallow your
Is this how you envisioned it?
This is the crib.
You should try to make yourself useful. If you want to stick around.
You got a camera. You know how to press record.
You're like my hero, man. You're always on Oliver's Instagram. Ollie, say hi.
Calling this fan Ollie already? You sound like one of his bitches. You're like my best friend. I mean that.
Yo, get back! Bro!
It's a detail shot.
Walk back. Fanboy, man.
Ollie!
I guess that means you're like my best friend.
You gotta head out.
What?
Best friend.
I think you should just take a break.
Best friend.
What's the difference between love and obsession?
You changed my life. But you took that from me. And I can't let that happen again.
What's the difference between love and
I
obsession?
know what you're doing.
Where is he?
Maddie, can you please put the big-ass porno camera down? Please don't take it away.
Everyone around you. We all want the same thing.
What are you doing?
I just want it more.
All right, so that was the trailer for Lurker. It's basically the story of this young man just hanging out in a store that he works in, and one day a up-and-coming music artist comes in, and he sort of works his way into that guy's inner circle, and, you know, we might learn what the difference is between love and obsession. So, Stephen Miller, what did you think of Lurker?
So I got to be honest, I was not really interested in watching this movie. I'd seen the trailer play at Alamo quite a few times ahead of other movies, and it felt to me like it was going to be one of those low-budget, wannabe horror or psychological horror movies that would be like 95% vibes, but then outstay its welcome and not really have anything to say. And in a sense, this movie is all vibes, or at least the vibes are like the most defining characteristic. It flows like a music video, which makes total sense given the world that it is living in. But the vibes rule. And I fucking really enjoyed living in this unnerving world. It helps that this movie is just stacked with like legendary creeps. I mean, we've got the main character Matthew, that actor Théodore Pellerin. He was the creep from Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. That's like hitting on the girls and, you know, trying to like get with one of them. The videographer that he finds himself working with, Daniel Zolgadri, he's the creep in 8th grade who tries to, you know, hook up in the backseat of a car. And his coworker, not necessarily a creep character, but his coworker Sunny is the kid from mid-90s who he himself was not necessarily a very not that lovable a character, certainly a bit of a rapscallion. I mean, I don't know. So already it's just like it's stacked with a cast of very like recognizable people who are willing to play characters that aren't always the most lovable or pure of heart.
Yeah.
And I think the unnervingness goes so much deeper than the trailer made me expect. I mean, I think Théodore Pellerin like is really great here as this kind of obsessive character. You know, think like Saltburn or Talented Mr. Ripley or whatever. Like, you know, he's filling a role where you don't necessarily know why he does everything he does, and it reveals it over the course of the movie. But he plays like just the perfect level of sociopath and chameleon who can say or do the thing to get noticed. And then this singer that he has targeted, played by Archie Madekwe, he's like the perfect level of vapid as Oliver. He's like, I would totally believe a person so young who is thrust into being extremely online famous at a very early age lives this kind of Richie Rich type life where you don't really know how to be an adult, and you want to be a nice person, or you want to think you're a nice person, but you also are like, you're just playing with toys. Like, you don't even know how to relate to people on a normal human level anymore, and how tempting it would be as that kind of person to latch on to someone who seems authentic, who seems to like you for you, who is different from the other yes men that you've surrounded yourself with. That dynamic is just really cool. And the way it explores fame and the alienation of fame, and then how lonely it would be to be the kind of groupie, the ride-along character, you know, kind of almost famous vibes. Like, this movie is doing a lot while also being a creepy stalker movie, and it builds up to a thesis that is like much more coherent than I expected it to be. Like, I expected this movie to flame out in the third act, and instead it's like, oh, we have a whole other thing to say to just put a cap on the story.
Yeah.
So like, it isn't a perfect movie. Like, I think it lingers in that kind of third act place a little too long, and there are things that could be tighter maybe, but I was pleasantly surprised by this movie from beginning to end. I really think this is just a very impressive film. It like says a lot about the director, what is his name? Alex Russell, and his ability to like maintain a consistent tone that just like gnaws inside of you. And I think, yeah, it's just a solid movie all around. I really have no complaints, and I'm glad that you wanted to watch it, even if I didn't. How did you feel about Lurker?
Yeah, I thought Lurker was pretty great. I mean, I know your style of introing what you're about to say on the film, so I assume there was a but in a positive way coming in your description of why you were worried going to the film. But I am glad that ultimately this film won you over. I had a really great time with it. This film is essentially DD meets Saltburn. If you basically take those two films and mash them together, it's a pretty good comparison for what this film is. And I think for me, you know, I didn't know fully what to expect. I had kind of bought the tickets on a whim. You know, I was scrolling through Alamo, and I think they had just posted it. I was like, oh shit, this is coming out. And I'd booked a ticket, so much so that in our last episode, when we were like, oh yeah, we're going to watch Caught Stealing, I didn't even remember that I already had a ticket for this film. So I am also glad that we did get to watch it. This is one of those films where like you kind of know what you're getting into, right? Somebody is either fanning out or has some sort of obsession with somebody who has at least a moderate amount of fame around them, and as they get too attached and too obsessive, that starts to be off-putting, and then that person potentially wants to distance themselves. At least that's kind of what I was expecting from this film. But this film is way more sinister than that. The level of uncomfortable cringiness that you get as you watch this character, and you realize that this is not somebody who gets caught up in somebody else's world. This is somebody who was done caught up in that person's world and kind of tricks their way in, and then unleashes something that that is pretty wild. And I think this is a film where is like, even from the start, you're just barely sympathetic for the main character. And then the more he gets cringy, the more you're like, okay, I'm kind of not on his side, but this is a movie. I assume I'm supposed to root for him. I guess I'll keep going. And the more this film goes, the more uncomfortable you feel in what the situations are. And then the more actually genuinely scared you get for all of the people involved in the story.
Yeah.
And I think that this is just, it's a fun, twisty ride that, you know, like, this is, as you said, this is kind of a hangout vibes film, right? There's not this is not like, newspapers aren't printing stories about this musical artist, but like internet culture is fanning out on him. And we get to see like people mention, oh, you're always on his Instagram and like that kind of stuff. So we know that he is famous, but this isn't like a rise and fall story of an artist. This is just like this isolated thing with this one group of people. Some people are just there and always hanging out, and like they're really entertaining and fun. Like just seeing whatever's playing out at the house is just a really, really fun thing to watch. And each character has their own sort of role within this like family of this of this musical artist, and they're all kind of just on the edge of being there. And it's like characters are like, oh, well, yeah, we'll see if you're still here tomorrow, and how easy it is to get in and how easy it is to suddenly be out of that group. It's just something that I think this film both handles well and sells me on feeling very authentic about what's going on in this film. And then, this is a film that you constantly squirm in your seat as every next piece of dominoes falls in the story. And I just found it incredibly entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. And like, I obviously, I'm not really the age demographic that this movie is talking about. You know, I'm an out of touch millennial. This is like a new era of fame and internet culture, but it feels very authentic to me. At least, like, I believe that people would relate in this way, that fans would run in on the street and see someone who is like peripherally in the crew of the person they're obsessed with, and they would get their own level of cool and hip, you know, cachet from that, and how hard you would try to hang on to that status, even though it's based on nothing. So it could fall away at any time, you know, and it's just an interesting dynamic where to the famous person, to Oliver, it doesn't matter that he's letting you hang out. It's like, it's nothing. It isn't a big deal at all. To you, it is your entire life. Yeah. And like, but your entire life depends on playing it cool and seeming like you don't want it that hard. And the idea of how like, everyone is posing, you know, everyone is trying to act nonchalant and act like they're just like the crew that wants to hang out and have a good time. But really there's like that undercurrent of competition and desperation is just, to me, that was just so fun to watch. And the movie does a lot with that, of just, I'm not even going to say subtle dynamics, but like subterranean things that are happening between different people in the crew where they're like, one more than others is outright trying to sabotage, but everyone is kind of sniping or is watching to be like, how does Oliver look at you? Because once Oliver likes you, I'm going to act like I like you. But the moment I have a chance to do my own thing, that mask is going to come off real quick. Yeah. And I think everyone plays it just really, really great. Yeah, I don't know. I kept being surprised. I kept thinking, when is this movie going to lose me? Because and I've read more about it since. Like, this script was on the Blacklist, which is like a big kind of compilation of awarded scripts that have not yet been produced, of like, hey, somebody needs to take a look at this. Yeah. And so it had a big like narrative thrust going in. I really thought this was going to be the kind of thing that is like one good core idea, but then very festival style, like stretched out to make a feature length movie until by the end you're like, okay, yeah, that was a cool music video short that they just kind of like forced to be 100 minutes long. But this really has a lot to say, and I feel like it earns the runtime. I don't know. I was very surprised.
How long was it?
I think it was like 101 minutes.
Okay. It's not super
so it's still
long,
short, but it's not like one of those like 72-minute festival things that you expect where they're like, we are going to do as little as possible to call this a feature film. Yeah, I know. And then bounce.
And yeah, I think that most of those type of films, there would be like a person gets in with a thing, he does the ruining, and then the movie ends with him thinking about what he did, right? Like that's how most of these stories end. This film has a whole other thing after those moments, and it's just kind of like, shit.
and the whole other thing also gives it a chance to get creepier in a different way. Like Oliver really gets to be, and it isn't a spoiler to say that he's like a creep in this movie. I think the trailer makes it very clear that he has some level of obsession, you know, and he's meant to be seen as like the unnerving person, kind of the horror story of what if you were famous, what would it be like if a fan got to know you like this? But he has so much more depth of his creepiness to him, and he really gets to like flex that in the last maybe 30 or 40 minutes of the movie.
I will say that the only thing that I found slightly stretching my believability in the story is once, well, you know, without going into too many spoilers, once the stuff gets so cringy, I would find it hard for an artist to continue to make their music in that reality. At least an artist who professes to write music that means so much to them, and the music being so important. So there was like one little thing where I was like, it just something feels like I'm fine with it, but it just is like it feels like it would require a level that I wasn't sure would be possible. But
the more I almost don't want to talk about the Saltburn comparison, because like the more you drill into it, the more it almost starts to feel like a spoiler. So I won't dig in, except that it very much it earns it for sure. And it's kind of a testament to the movie that I didn't feel while I was watching it like it was ripping off anything. It felt like it was just doing it better. Honestly, it was doing it in a less like hammy soap opera type way. Like it was doing it in a way that I believe, because it exists in a world where I think like this kind of stuff could go undetected, and there's so much like subtlety and nuance to the, I almost said difference between love and obsession because the song is in my head now. But you know, like there's a common thing that people talk about, how like the difference between someone being attractive and someone being like a total creep is whether you happen to be into them when they do the thing, right? Someone can approach you, and if you are into them, it's really suave and cool that they like were so confident, and if you are not into them, they're like, ugh, get away from me. And this movie is all about dancing that line, basically, of like, if you see this guy as harmless and cool and maybe the sort of awkward nerd-ish that like you, the artist, are like rescuing from that life and getting to be the cool friend to, it's all charming and endearing how he's awkward and trying a little bit to impress and trying to fit in and stuff. And the moment you feel differently, which the audience does because we've seen the trailer, all of that behavior just takes a very different tone. And I think this movie is doing something with that in a way that Saltburn was like, let's just have you buy this completely ridiculous premise and go for broke.
Cool. Any last thoughts about this film, Stephen, before we get to verdicts?
I like the music. I don't know. Maybe I need to start listening to like emo SoundCloud rappers or something. Clearly, I don't know. This is my vibe.
It does get in your ear and hang out there for a while.
It is interesting too that the like this movie, the leads are not musicians. You know, like the guy who plays Oliver is just an actor, but his crew of people that surround him are pretty much all like at least part of their career is that they're rappers or hip hop people. So it seems like this movie, it's at least like living in that world enough where they wanted to have people on the cast who are like very familiar. And I don't know anything about Alex Russell. Maybe he comes from a music video background too. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something that feels very authentic about it to me. I also, my last thought is I like the whole sequence of how Matthew is first introduced to Oliver's crew and the kind of razzing that goes on and how he one-ups them. That gave me a good chuckle.
That's one of the very last moments you're on his side.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also one of those moments that's like a Rorschach test, because you could tell that story if you were not into it at all and be like, oh. That's what I learned. I want nothing to do with this guy.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get to verdicts then. Stephen Miller, if you're going to give this a must-see, recommend with the caveat, wait for rental, pass with the caveat, or a must-avoid, what would you give it?
I was gonna give this a recommend with a caveat because it didn't linger that much in my mind, but honestly, I'm gonna bump it up to must see. I think the quality of this for what it's doing is really phenomenal, and it is worth checking out just to get a sense of a director who I assume his next movie is gonna be even bigger and better. So this definitely feels like just a great voice to watch out for, and yeah, I think the movie is just very clever, and it doesn't do any big swings that it can't make good on. It lives in its lane in a very just unsettling, eerie way, and it has things to say. It has more to say than I expected.
Yeah, must see for me as well. I was pleasantly surprised. I was curious going in, but pleasantly surprised by this film, and I really, really enjoyed it. And without getting too spoilery, last shot of this film, good tee up for our next few weeks.
Oh, yeah. I thought about that, too.
All right. That's going to do it for our review of Lurker. Stephen Miller, if people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or ChristopherIRL at a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at spoilerwarning.com where you get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so in Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. That's it. That's the end of our pre-festival coverage. We're going to be out for the next 2 weeks. And you'll get a bunch of stuff showing up in your feed, so hopefully you're excited. I think a bunch of the stuff we're seeing will be coming out in the few months after the festival, so it's not going to be super obscure stuff. It's all going to be things that you might be interested in seeing.
Yeah, we sprinkled there's maybe 5 obscure things that might just be festival things that then never see the light of day, but by and large, it is a lot of big movies, I think.
Yeah. So we're excited for that. Hopefully you are too, and we will see you all in the next episodes. Bye.
Bye.